Okay, on this next episode, I'm here with Phil again, Phil Benson, to talk about Bonnie Tyler, Total Eclipse of the Heart.
I like the song. It's
Yeah,
still a classic song. However, for a younger generation, the Dan Band brought it into fruition with the film Old School,
which I have not seen.
Will Ferrell and Vince Vaughn. If no one's seen it, it's absolutely amazing. They're a comedy band initially, but absolutely amazing. A little bit of swearing in it. There's a word of warning, but absolutely brilliant.
A little bit of swearing in the song.
In the song,
In the
their
song,
particular
yes.
version, but they show it in the film as well. It's the first dance scene at a wedding.
It's a good version.
If anyone looks, the Dan Band, absolutely amazing American band. They do covers of all sorts and make it their own. Absolutely amazing.
And like you say, I mean, I've got some of Bonnie Tyler's more recent stuff because I've been
Not the one
reviewing
she did at Eurovision.
No. But, I mean, she can make a naff song sound good, though, just with her voice, can't she?
It's a heartache. It's a great song at the time. Obviously, timeless. People
I Need a
cover it.
Hero.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Obviously, with I Need a Hero, younger ones, again, younger generations, because of Shrek and things like that, which is quite sad.
I forgot that was in Shrek, absolutely.
But yeah, it's just timeless. It brings it forward into a new generation.
And still going strong, Bonnie Tyler, absolutely.
Right, next one. Track 8, final track of side 8, Total Eclipse of the Heart. Bonnie Tyler, of course. Did you know her real name is Gaynor Hopkins? There you go. That's a pub quiz trivia for you. But it was February 83. It was released #1 for 2 weeks. Jim Steinman wrote it. I remember when the solar eclipse happened, 1999, we used to have Sky and it didn't have many channels then. But VH1, I think it was from about 11 in the morning till 12, played Total Eclipse of the Heart for an hour in a loop whilst the eclipse was happening. I remember that. Funny what you remember, but I do remember that happening. But yeah, I mean,
just turn you off the song completely, surely, and not wanting to hear it for a very long time after that.
There's rumours. There's rumours that Meatloaf suggested that the song was meant for him, and that's always been denied. Yeah. But it's an epic song.
I mean, the 80s was all about power ballads and this kind of, amongst other genres, and this kind of defines that completely. As you say, Jim Steinman had worked with Meatloaf, another artist known for his power ballads, but yeah, this was up there. The song itself was 4.5 minutes long. Apparently, it had to be edited down for radio play. I believe that the version on the album is 7 minutes.
Whoa.
So, we'd have done it 10 years earlier with Bohemian Rhapsody. Obviously, they didn't think that this was the right type of song to do a 7-minute version of to ensure it had a commercial success. It was #1 in 7 countries across the world.
And it's probably more of a surprise, because Bonnie Tyler, no disrespect to Bonnie Tyler, but she had hits in 1977 or whatever it was, Lost in France, and It's a Heartache. Bit of a gap though between hits.
I believe from doing some reading, she was sort of trying to get her career restarted, and she got a manager to introduce her to Jim Steinman. He'd written a couple of songs which he gave to her, and she didn't like either of them. So came back a couple of weeks later, and at that point he'd penned this, and she went for this. I understand that they have very different understandings of what the song's about. Jim Steinman suggests that when he wrote the song, it was because he was writing a musical to do with Nosferatu. So he wrote it sort of as a vampire type of style of song, whilst Bonnie Tyler believed it was about a couple and a love story between a normal couple. So, but it is a massive tune and a great tune nevertheless.
And of course, Jim Steinman passed away recently as well.
In 2015, there was a show on ITV where the British public voted for their favourite 80s #1s. This track was #3.
Really? #3.
Any ideas what #2 and 1 might be?
Why do I not think it's This Old House? #1.
That might be just outside the top 20, I'm sure.
Yeah. #1 in the 8. I don't know. Band-Aid.
No, that doesn't feature. I mean, this is voted for by the British public. So the top 2 were Billie Jean, Michael Jackson, and Every Breath You Take.
I want to be. Every Breath You Take was a song from '83 as well, weren't it? Which could have, I suppose, if record labels could have easily been on now one, couldn't it? Yeah. So just as whilst we're at the end of side 1, what is your best and worst song of the first side?
So for me, my worst song, you've probably gathered through the discussion already, was A Miles Only for Love. probably be my favourite. As we sort of said at the start, don't really recall it from the time, but having studied in Sheffield and going out in the city, it would be Heaven 17 and Temptation. It was played a lot. How about yourself?
Well, I would agree with you that Only for Love is the weakest song on the side. I would pick probably Casey and the Sunshine Band, Give It Up, I think, for my favourite still on that side. I think it still stands up. Great disco tune. Yeah, I'd still say that's my favourite on the side, yeah.
Yeah, it's a party classic. If you're doing a disco, like you say, it always gets the airplay, and it does keep people on the dance floor. So if you're playing that sort of a party classics, yeah, it's a great song.
It is.
This album, incidentally, was the best-selling compilation album of that year. Spent 5 weeks at #1, and of course, at that point, releasing it in November of the year, they started a sales strategy that continues to this day. Let's release it just before Christmas. People will buy it as Christmas presents.
That's, I mean, it's a clever strategy, and I mean, I've read recently, obviously, they're hoping that CD numbers stay with the new releases, and I know that they are continuing to drop, but you kind of hope that there's life for a few more years, yeah, in the format. I imagine there will be. There's enough collectors out there.
Definitely. I mean, it saw a reissue on vinyl in 2015 for Record Store Day. Which will be coming up in just a couple of weeks' time. I think it's the 12th of June, the next Record Store Day. No albums planned for release on that one. But of course, back in the day, it was vinyl and cassettes are coming back as well. So
yes.
Who knows? Will we ever see a Now album on cassette again?
The two things to mention at the end of that side, just whilst we're on side A, in 2018, like we mentioned, the album was re-released on CD. There was a couple of errors. Limahl's Only for Love, they used the album version rather than a unique edit that was made for Now One, apparently. And Malcolm McLaren's Double Dutch on the 2018 version, they used the album version rather than the 7-inch version. Now there you go. I suppose it's hard to try and relocate some of those versions sometimes.
Yeah, it'll be copyright, I guess, and
yeah.
As you say, there has been various different versions of songs appearing on these earlier Now albums, but some artists just haven't granted permission, have they? So I think David Bowie is the most obvious one that his label sort of wouldn't allow one of the tracks to be included.
Yes,
on one of the more recent ones.
Let's move on to side 2, track 9. Karma Chameleon, #1 for 6 weeks. So it's the most popular song on the Now album that we've covered so far, released September 1983. It won the Best British Single at the 1984 Brit Awards. Obviously, Culture Club, big band. I remember the video more than anything. I remember growing up, obviously with the boat on the Mississippi, I think it was meant to be, or something like that. But it still gets played endlessly, doesn't it?
Yeah. As you say, Culture Club, Karma Chameleon, the band with Boy George fronting them were massive in the 80s. Is he a boy? Is he a girl? Nobody knew. But yeah, this song, party staple, 80s disco staple. It's played everywhere. As you said, 6 weeks at #1, biggest selling single in 1983, and at present is the 38th biggest selling single in the UK, having sold about 1.5 million copies.
Really?
It's sandwiched nicely between George Michael's Careless Whisper and Ken Dodd's Tears.
Wait, Tears for Souvenirs. Oh, Ken Dodd in top 40.
I knew that would set you off.
We won't do Ken Dodd impressions, but yeah, that Culture Club, Karma Chameleon.
Which TV show did Culture Club famously appear on?
So say that line again. Sorry, say that line again. There was a bit of distortion. Go on.
Which TV show did Culture Club famously appear on in the 80s? Can you recall?
Right, sorry, it was 1986. It was they sang Karma Chameleon on the A-Team, didn't they? And at the end, it's an awful episode. It does not where the idea came from, I've no idea. But I've seen it once. I was like, "What is this? This is." And there's like some hillbillies in this barn, I think, or something like that from memory. But yeah, I remember that one.
It was one of the latter series of the A-Team, and it was toward the end of Culture Club's career, I guess. So it served the purpose for both of them at the time. But yeah, good novelty fact to get.
No, I like that. Track 10 then, Safety Dance. Men Without Hats, released in August 1983, reached number 6, Canadian group, and they're still going. They've got a new album due out this year.
Yeah, you've taken everything I was going to say. Yeah, not quite a one-hit wonder. Yeah, as you said, they had 2 hits. The second top 40 hit was in 1987. I'd not heard of it. I probably didn't hear this song at the time. It was probably from years later, listening to electronic music compilations, that I sort of first became aware of it. But it's a good track. It's an interesting track. It's quirky. I mean, a lot of the things in the 80s were about novelty records. So we had the Spitting Images and the Star Trek in the Firms, and whilst not in that same sort of element as those tracks later in the decade, this kind of fits into that in a bit. It's a quirky record.
Quirky it is. Right, we'll do number 11. Time now for track 11, or the third track on side 2, Kajagoogoo, Too Shy, released January 83, number 1 for 2 weeks. Limal's second appearance, of course, so far on Now One. I didn't used to like this. It's probably grown on me more as I've got older. It's
a great record. I mean, again, as I mentioned earlier, it would be one of those tracks. The only track I'd probably recall for Kajagoogoo. They appear later on on the album. That song, you listen to it and it kind of disappears without trace. But yeah, Too Shy. It's a great song. It's a simple riff. It's a great chorus, and yeah, I guess it's a bit of it gets in there, and you don't lose the sound of it. It keeps going. You're able to remember it after you've heard it, and yeah, it's a good song. Sadly, of course, the demise of Limal from the group. They would try and continue without him as a frontman. He brought the success as a frontman, and then that was insufficient once he'd left. So 2 years after this, 1985, they called it a day. It was a very short-lived career, and at the end of this year, they'd have had one more top 20 hit, but no more hits after that.
And we will hear them again on Now One in a little while, won't we, as well?
We will.